Okay, sorry for you folks over on YouTube. Sorry for that. Welcome to the Mindful Live 86 again for you folks over on YouTube. My apologies about the lack of audio there at the beginning. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. Let's dive right into the topic of the evening. The topic of the evening, as we were speaking about before, was this current trial that has just finished, has just come to the conclusion over in the United States. Good night, Elizabeth Natasha Surratt. Wish you had these talks under the mango tree in VHC. Maybe. So, this was part of a full narrative. This isn't just something to look at as an individual case by itself. It's part of a continued narrative that you can look at as a whole story. And this narrative would have begun several years ago during the MeToo movement. Now, I don't know the age and how online and how up with the times everyone viewing the live is, but the MeToo movement was a massive deal. That was a big deal. It has fizzled out a bit now, but for some time back in 2017, somewhere around there, the MeToo movement was making waves around the world, and it was understood why. Good night, Alan Neptune. The MeToo movement, the general idea of it was that there had been many instances of abuse, of assault, of sexism that occurred, and because of the nature of how society ran at a certain point in time, it was all swept under the rug. So the MeToo movement came out to tell their stories, the stories that sometimes were not told over decades, and they came out to let it be known it is not going to be approved anymore. We are not okay with this. We are going to tell on you. And one of the biggest stories out of that was the Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein, who was a very well-known producer in Hollywood, very well linked all around the place. And then it came out, a revelation was made that this man basically had a casting couch. Was the MeToo started by celebrities or normal folks? If I remember correctly, the MeToo wasn't originally started by celebrities, but it was popularized by them. It has fizzled out because, like the BLM head leader, they took the donation money and all right. The MeToo movement, I don't think it's the same necessarily as BLM, where there would be monetary improprieties that help to really quash the movement. I think it had to do with the nature of the movement in and of itself. So what this was doing, many people were coming out with their confessions about what happened to them and what was kept a secret and what they could not share for years. They couldn't tell anyone about these deep, dark secrets, about these evil men. Can you please restate what the topic for tonight is? Please, we're talking about the issues arising out of this Johnny Depp Amber Heard case. Yes. And many women came out with this and came out public. Now, the MeToo movement from very early on was running into some problems because several people were complaining that some of these confessions were being made, names were being called, but no evidence was really being put forward. It was carte blanche, a way to just sully someone's name. You could call anyone's name, say that they did something, you don't have any proof of it, and it goes down in the record, and this person is now seen as an abuser of the worst kind. Now, Harvey Weinstein, the fact that he came to be charged and came to be convicted shows the reckoning that the MeToo movement correctly did. They were able to bring some rightful monsters out from hiding and get some justice done. These men were using their positions of power for years upon years to abuse many young women. Now, the Harvey Weinstein thing could have a little complexity in it, and there could be some discussion there, and I understand how some people could get into a little difficulty in trying to understand some of this, because some of the cases with Harvey Weinstein and people of his ilk, some of the cases weren't in the direct understanding of what we commonly know to be assault and rape without the G. Because what was happening in some of those cases is this man had so many links in Hollywood, he was offering some young ladies a position forward in the industry, and in turn he would take something from them. To some extent, that could nearly seem like a business transaction. If I promise you to get you into movies in Hollywood, but all you need to do is give me $5,000 for it, would that be okay? Or if I promise to get you into movies into Hollywood and I tell you, give me some time with your buddy in return for it, would that be okay? And is that then a deal made? But sorry, part of the discussion that was made around the Harvey Weinstein issue was not just whether people were capable of making a deal with their body to get an advancement in their career. That wasn't the discussion. Part of the discussion had to do with power imbalances, as in Harvey Weinstein was a man of a lot of power. So when he was in an interaction with some new actress now freshly on the scene, there was a power imbalance. So nearly any interaction in such a situation has that power imbalance as the backdrop to it. Now, I have some problems with the whole power imbalance discussion, because some of the power imbalance discussion is actually kind of Marxism in a sense, where every single human interaction is placed into the lens of the oppressor and the oppressed, and in a sense the oppressed cannot do anything wrong to the oppressor. And I think that is infantilizing people. If you're an adult, if you are over the age of 18, you are treated in society as if you have the ability to make decisions for your own self. And I think that should be done kind of across the board. That's my belief. But either way, Mr. Harvey Weinstein, the only thing he got into trouble for wasn't just the whole favors for favors business. He actually got into some really deep sick stuff. So his prosecution, his conviction could have been seen as a reckoning of these monsters. Amber hit every MeToo talking point she riding this wave years. Yeah, we getting around to that. So to many people, they saw that after the Harvey Weinsteins and some of the obvious ones, they saw that the MeToo movement seemed to be taking up a little negative light, where some people, even from the very accusation they gave them, I remember one accusation, I can't remember the comedian's name, an American Indian comedian, and the accusation against him basically came down to they didn't like the date. And if you don't like a date, that's not assault. That's just a bad date. And you can't then call someone's name as an abuser or an assaulter because you didn't like the date. And that's kind of what was going on there. And some people, some women, were seeing the amount of power that could be held in the hands of this kind of thing. And there were negative ramifications happening even in the workplace too. There were stories coming out where they were saying that some workplaces, some senior men in the job place were refusing to work with any woman in and around the job place. And can you blame them? Totally. It could be understood because of the direction that a lot of the Me Too movement was headed in. So now when we reach a couple of years down the road and we can see that Johnny Depp has won this case, we could see that this case could be seen as a ramification, as a reckoning on the Me Too movement itself. This shows that yes, the Me Too movement can go too far. It shows that the Me Too movement in some cases has already gone too far, and it has shown gratefully that at least the American court system is able to pull back this social movement after it has gone too far. Because the conclusion of the case, now I've paid enough attention to this case. I haven't been stalking the entire case, but as conclusions come out, I try to keep up to date with what is happening. And when I listen to some of the news and some of the headlines, how some people are representing this case and the outcome of the case, some people are doing it dishonestly, and I think some people are doing it that way on purpose. Because Amber Heard won one of her counts, some people are saying, well, they both won and they both lost and they both won, and that kind of shows that they were both right and they were both abusers in this, and they were both horrible in this thing, and it shows that they were both and they were both and they were both and they were both. What you take from the evidence is up to you, but the conclusion of this, the ruling that the jury came up with, does not actually say that. Johnny Depp won on all of his counts. What does that say? His counts basically were that this woman lied about me being an abuser. And if he won on all his counts, the jury saw it that, yes, she did lie about him being an abuser. Miss Heard did not win on all her counts. She won on one count. And the one count that she won on was a statement by one of Mr. Depp's lawyers where he accused Miss Heard and her friend of purposefully ransacking a room to stage it as a hoax for the police. Now, such a statement is something that the lawyer obviously couldn't prove. He was not there, so you could understand why such a statement would be seen as defamatory. He said that they staged it as a hoax for the police. While he was not there, the two people who were there said that they didn't stage it. So, yeah, your statement could be seen as defamatory. But that was the only count she won on. That count does not say that Mr. Depp was an abuser. That count does not deny that she indeed was an abuser also. So, her winning on that one count does not help her argument in terms of proving that Mr. Depp was indeed an abuser and disproving that she was an abuser too. So if you had to go from the jury's finding, the conclusion they found was that they didn't see enough evidence to prove that Mr. Depp was an abuser, and they found enough evidence to seem to prove that she was. But she getting $2 million for that, there is pressure. Yes, she is getting $2 million for that. But when you check up everything, Mr. Depp won $10 million and $5 million, which accumulated to $15 million. Now, the $5 million, because of the state it was in and the statutory laws there, they don't go over $350,000. So he cannot win more than that. And that $5 million is reduced to $350,000. So he is getting $10,350,000. So then you minus $2 million out of that $10 million because she won $2 million. So he'd be getting $8,350,000, which is still a considerable amount of money. And considering that Miss Heard only got $7 million in their divorce settlement, he would be getting back their divorce settlement and around what, a 3% interest every year, because he got what, $1.3 million extra on that. Yeah, about a 3% interest every year that since he gave her that. So when it comes to the money, he still comes out on top in that. And according to him, the case wasn't even about the money. The case was about clearing his name. And clearing his name has to do with public perception. And in public perception, he has certainly won that. He has certainly won the case in the court of the public, in the court of public opinion and perception. And as someone pointed out there, her net worth is $8 million. I saw some one of those celebrity net worth sites. It could have been a joke, but some one of them now have her net worth as minus $10 million, because that's the next problem. She does not have that money. According to what she says and what it seems, she does not have that kind of money to pay him in the first place. Elon Musk will help her pay. I doubt. I think that interaction that she once had with Elon is no more. And while Mr. Depp did successfully win the public opinion back, she seems to have clearly lost the public opinion. And that would make it more difficult to make friends in the future. Very few people may want to be seen with her anymore. Unless you are clearly a supporter of her and willing to go right down with that, you wouldn't want to be seen in and around this person. Her name has already been sullied. Yeah, Elon has more than enough on his plate right now. I highly doubt he's going to even get close to getting involved with that bit of bacchanal. I don't think he's going in and around that. But yeah. This, I think, has brought some balance to it. I appreciate this. I think I appreciated the Harvey Weinstein conviction, and I appreciate this ruling. It has brought back some balance to it, where we understand that yes, there are monsters out there who do horrible acts, but also we understand that there are women monsters too who would easily lie about anything. There was this sentiment going on around the time of MeToo where it was hashtag believe all women, and that I found to be one of the most ridiculous statements ever, where the assumption from the jump is that the woman is to be believed. On what grounds does that even make sense? And I think this ruling here has brought some temperance to this. It has tempered some of that rhetoric where we understand, no, you do not believe all women. Yes, there are monsters out there, but no, you do not believe all women, because some women lie. Some women do lie. Now, some men, I'm sure, are properly vindicated on this, talking about the horrible women out there and how women are so bad and women are so bad. When I was in my second year, Ronnie is seeing a girl say my father was in Bago that weekend. Agreed. Yes, it happens. It happens way more than many people like to admit. It happens way more than many people like to admit. But yeah, I like the ruling. It has tempered this. It allowed us to understand the balance of it, and I think it should prove as a warning to some people that there's a limitation to what you can make up. Huh? Wow. But yeah, where was I in this? Now, when you look back at the MeToo movement, as I was saying, and what they had as an integral part of their movement being the idea of the power imbalance, where some people have more power than some, and when you look at an interaction, there is that part in it. Now, if you read Miss Heard's response when this ruling was made, her response spoke directly about some of those MeToo assumptions, where she spoke about the power of her ex-husband and his influence and his reach. And when you see some of the defenders of Miss Heard, that's what they speak about, that in this present case, Mr. Depp is the one who has the greater power, and the power disparity is in his favor. So he is abusing Amber, whether there may have been some untruths and whether she may have reacted or not. She is the victim anyhow, because he was the one with the superior power. And I think that's where we get into the problem with any of those kind of Marxist style thinking, where you're trying to estimate who is the one with the power and who is the one without the power, and the one with the power is always the cruel one, and the one without the power is always the hero. That's why so many people in the modern world, if you look around, there are so many people who seem to be yearning to become a victim. And if you look at it, you wonder, okay, but why would you want to be the victim? Well, that's why they want to be the victim, because they're following a worldview where they esteem anyone who has more power in a given interaction to be the oppressor, and the one with the less power is the oppressed. So for example, people with that kind of thinking, they're the one who changed the definition for racism, and they won't tell you that racism is prejudice based on race, where you have the belief that one race is inferior or superior to another based on their racial identity. No, they say that racism is prejudice plus power. Plus power. You see, a black person cannot be racist to a white person because they do not have systemic power. And I call that utter rubbish. I call that utter rubbish. Because that's not how it works. Individuals are individuals, and you look at things on the individual basis. 5-6 Music says the ideology that supports Amber's actions don't see the flaws in their thought process. It is justified in their eyes because they are the ones that have been victimized over the course of history. Anthony Somerville says, my only concern about this is that Jenny has money to fight those claims, but what about persons who don't have those resources and fall victim to such lies? And that's why I say I like the fact that he won this case. The fact that he won this case would allow for some people who may not even be able to reach to the court case point to at least be able to point to this court case during an allegation to give the idea that all allegations aren't automatically true. Just the fact that this court case was won, that point can be made. Look, you can see there are cases where allegations have been made and they were proven to be untrue. So this allegation about me, I do not consider it to be true too. So I see even this little win as a benefit to some of the men who may face such things. She posted saying that her loss in this case is a setback for women. Yes, I read it, and I find that to be ridiculous. It's so offensive. In this case, I look around and I see that most of the most vociferous supporters of Mr. Depp in this case seem to have been women. Many women came to his defense in this case for several reasons. Granted, he has always been, as they say, a heartthrob. Many women already found him attractive and liked him since the 90s, so of course there was always that. But then the fact that many women know such things. There are many women who have brothers. There are many women who have, well, all women have fathers, have uncles, have male relatives where they have seen the evils of some evil woman enacted on this man's life. And I think many women put themselves as a relative of him in a position like that, and they defended him even stronger because of this. His strongest defenders were women. If you look at the people who were roasting Amber Heard the most, it wasn't even the men, it was women out there. Because many women also recognize that by lying, by obscuring the facts as it comes to abuse cases, you are actually making it more difficult for real abuse victims in the future. It's what everyone keeps saying. False abuse claims makes it hard for real abuse victims in the future. Actually, I've noticed this thinking with the social teacher in UE. I will not doubt it. It's a pretty popular ideological standpoint, especially in the social sciences. He actually defined 10 different types of racism, oddly enough, and based upon perception, as always with social sciences, than universal objective evidence. Yeah, social science could get kind of sketchy, real sketchy. I find that's the problem. Many women know but choose to ignore that some could still lie. Some may ignore it, but I found that a lot came out to say it. There were a lot of women that came out and were out in public on Mr. Depp's side, saying that they do not believe this woman for a moment. They think she's a liar. They think she should be punished for it. And I think those women came out because they understood the negatives that Miss Heard was doing to womankind. You see, womankind has some privileges. Just how there is male privilege, privilege is reality. Everyone has some amount of privilege, but there is female privilege too. There are privileges that are granted to women. The Believe All Women hashtag that came out around the time with MeToo was a privilege kinda granted to women, and they tried to push the privilege too far. The privilege was that, generally speaking, if a woman comes out and say that a man abuses her, you generally start from the standpoint of believing this woman. That's the female privilege of such a situation, because the danger of it is more on her side. If you believe her and it's not true, then okay, well, we say sorry to the man and we go from there. But if you don't believe her and it turns out to be true, you could ignore it and the woman could end up deceased. So of course, yes, you start from that standpoint. There is some female privilege in this. There's some female privilege in the sense that society looks at women as in, yes, we need to do things to make sure our women are protected in our society. Now, if you as a woman take those female privileges and abuse it, what you are doing is diminishing the possibility for other women to benefit from those same privileges. Richard Glubman says, I'm watching CNN fighting down the verdict, talking the same MeToo talking points. Of course they will. Of course they will. Each person, everyone who has their own ideological slant will try to get their own ideological conclusion out of this. So it's no real surprise there. But I think the evidence kind of talks for itself. It's just not how things actually work. All right. That's the Amber Heard issue. Let's head over to Trinidad for a short bit and we'll talk about some local issues here. And the local issue that seems to be in the main of the news, the woman was caught lying too much. Yeah, she was caught obviously lying. A lot of her story. Like, I didn't want to get into too many of the specifics inside of the case because I'd have to remember all of it. But there was so many instances where she was obviously caught lying. She was supposed to donate the 7 million. She didn't donate the 7 million. She tried to make some kind of weird word game playing that pledging it is the same as donating it, and she uses pledge and donate interchangeably. That is utter rubbish. No one does that. Some of those things, and to me the nail that sealed this coffin, the nail, I think, when I hear many women talk about it, the part that broke their heart, and to be fair, many women are more empathetic, so their heart can be broken when they see what is going on in this case. Also, the part that broke many women's hearts was the recording where Miss Heard can be directly heard. Miss Heard can be directly heard taunting Johnny Depp, saying, go tell the world, go tell a judge and a jury that you, a man, Johnny Depp, was also a victim of abuse, and see who is going to believe you. Now, those words obviously came back to haunt her. But before you saw the conclusion of this case, those words were piercing. They were telling. Those words spoke something about the nature of our society. And I think for many women, those words explain the reality for some men very clearly. That as a man, the woman who is abusing me can look me in the eyes and taunt me by telling me, go tell the world what I am doing you, and no one is going to believe you, while she abuses me. And then, while she turns around and accuses me of the abuse that she engaged against me. That is horrific. And I think that recording right there, that one flipped the public perception to the greatest deal. I think that one right there was the major flip of the public perception. And the recordings did it, I think. So another recording, I heard a woman speaking about she was a victim of abuse herself, and she was speaking about something that really changed her mind. She said she saw the recording, the video. She saw the video where he damaged the cabinets and the cupboards, etc. And then she saw how the video was framed, and she saw how Miss Heard taunted him. And then after he is frustrated in the video ends with her snickering. She's laughing at the end of the video. And then during the video, this was an abuse victim saying this. This isn't my opinion necessarily. This was the opinion of an abuse victim who was outside the courthouse and interviewed. She said that his actions were not directed to Amber. And those did not seem like the actions of an abuser. An abuser wasn't going to take out his frustration pointedly on inanimate objects. He was going directly to the source of his frustration, and that's where he would have taken out his anger and his frustration. Somebody turning around and destroying their own cupboards out of anger may say that they need to find more healthy ways to deal with their anger, but it also says that, well, they don't seem to have intention of damaging the person. And then to see the person recording it, taunting them and snickering after they finished it, and then hearing the TMZ guy say that, well, she basically gave us this video right after she recorded it. It seems like this whole thing was just too cruel and planned. This woman planned the torture of this man. And then you have all these women who are already given to liking Johnny Depp out there. They already like this eccentric, lovable character that has been a superstar since the 90s. And now you build this extremely sad story around him where you are abusing him. You have him locked in the relationship where the world would not believe him. You're taunting him into frustration, and then you are accusing him of the very thing that you were doing to him. Listen, you are setting this man up as a martyr. He is super attractive to a lot of women, and now he has a super empathetic story where he's being abused and trapped in this situation. Listen, if you're a writer, if any one of you are custom reading romantic books, bear in mind romantic books are kind of, well, according to how deep they get, they are more the pornography for women, if you're being honest, because many women are more imaginative. So if they read the words, they get better from that than just the raw visual. So if you were writing a story and you wanted to make a super likable man, the character they made Johnny Depp into there, listen, that's the character nearly any woman wants. This broken, hurt, rich, very talented man, but he was hurt so badly, and he was cornered in this hurt, and the whole world nearly, literally, was against him. And he had to fight tooth and nail to retain his former proper reputation. You can't get a more likable story than that. And then you attempt to throw in there that he used drugs and alcohol. That does nothing negative to his story. Like, women in the chat, you all be honest. Do the drugs do anything negative to the Johnny portrayal there? No, not really. I might even dare say, if you're writing this as a romantic story, as a romantic novel, the drugs only add to the story. Because now there's this mystery where he hides his pain. He drowns his pain with the drugs and alcohol, and he hides it from you. So he has to disappear to go use these drugs to, get over the trauma of all the pain he has been through. Listen, I could see this book selling off already. If someone writes this story, women are going to buy it off of the shelves. So, the narrative that was created, I think, around Johnny in this situation, and the facts that came out only worked to his grand benefit. They only work to his benefit. She will also write a book like OJ. Well, here's part of the really insulting part in some of this. But some of it that makes it look all the more manipulative and conniving. She didn't even write the article, The article the article in question, the main article that she lost the case for defamation because of, where she wrote that she was the face of domestic abuse, and hi, good night, Hallie 59. where she was the face of domestic abuse, etc., etc. Exactly, Naomi Tischel. Exactly. It is a very common trope. My ex told me he took drugs and I ran. Well, you're a very smart woman. That's very smart. But that's not what... If you think about it, if you're thinking about the tropes, think about Twilight. This man drank blood. He had to drink blood to stay alive. That's what he did. And that made him all the more likable to millions of women across the world. So, you know what I mean. Like, let's be real. You know what I mean. But yeah, what made this so much more conniving and strange? The article in question here, the article that she was prosecuted for, she did not even write it. The article was drafted by an ACLU lawyer. If you go read the article, read it with the understanding now that a lawyer was the original drafter of this article, and it would make a lot of sense to you, because the article is written in the kind of lawyer slippery, iffy language where it's difficult to get any clear assertion out of it. She never called Mr. Depp's name inside of the article. Thank you very much, Hallie. She never called Mr. Depp's name. She never made any direct references to him. So she had plausible deniability to say this article wasn't actually about him. It's because the article was written by a lawyer. The fact that you took a lawyer to draft this article to knowingly reference the man while trying to keep out of the legal process says that it is something manipulative and something underhanded. That's not how people who are trying to move above board act. But then some of the real difficulty in this, although she tried to insist that the article was not actually about Mr. Depp. It could have been about anyone. It was just about the issues of the day. But then at multiple times during the court case, you look, and she actually, her mouth slipped. Her mouth slipped during the court case, and she spoke about the article being and referencing. I believe Mr. Depp's lawyer got her to directly say that the article was in reference to Mr. Depp. So from the time you admit that in the court case, well, yeah, you're obviously going to lose it then. So that is to say, even if she does write a book, very likely she wouldn't even write the book. Someone else would write the book for her. She would put her name on the book and make some money off of it, as many of them usually do. All right. Let's see if we could head over to Trinidad for a short bit here and get into our most pressing stories of the day. The worst publicity, son. If her lawyer stuck to the op-ed alone, she would have had a better case. That's why lawyers let her talk. Yeah, I think so too. So be it. But the news of the day in Trinidad seems to be the workers that were let go from TSTT, but then they were not let go, they were pulled back because they won a hearing inside of the industrial court that brought them back into work. Updated, industrial court puts 400 plus TSTT firings on hold. Communication Workers Union head Clyde Elder says his union has secured an injunction from the industrial court to stop TSTT from retrenching workers represented by the CWU for 14 days. So basically what happened there was that TSTT fired a whole lot of workers. They retrenched them. They said, listen, we don't have any more work for you guys. Go home. Bye. Hard luck. But the Communication Workers Union said that, no, we are not taking this. So they took it to the industrial court and they want to stay an injunction on this. On the grounds basically that if you're retrenching someone, you have to give them some notice. You know, you don't just do it on now for now basis. Elder said the notices were not in compliance with the law because workers were supposed to be given 45 days notice of retrenchment, but they were told they would be retrenched immediately. The company tried to hide their illegality by paying workers 45 days in lieu of notice. Of course, that act doesn't contemplate any payment in lieu of notice. Please note the collective agreement does make mention of it, and because the company did not comply with the provisions of the RSBA given in the notice to the union, they reapproached the court and they won the case in the court. They cannot just fire workers like that. You cannot just send workers home. You have to give them some amount of notice. That was known in the collective agreement in between the workers and the company. The company tried to do a smart move where we would pay you for the 45 days. Just go home one time now. We would pay you for the 45 days leave. But that wasn't in the agreement either. The agreement is that you have to give them 45 days notice. You cannot give them payment for the 45 days and hope that they just leave. No, you have to give them the 45 days notice. And that is understood why. If you are going to put someone out as they're unemployed now, you cannot do that today for tomorrow. That's very unkind. That's not how you run these things. You give them some notice. So hopefully in those 45 days, they'll be able to find an alternative place of employment. TSTT on Thursday issued the retrenchment notices for 468 employees. Wow. The fact is that TSTT does not restructure. The fact is that if TSTT does not restructure, it will not survive, said the company. And we believe that this restructuring will put us back on the path of sustainable profitability. This came after Elder had earlier on Tuesday confirmed reports of the retrenchment of 376 staff represented by CWU. Elder said some staff would be retrenched as of Wednesday. TSTT's statement said TSTT today initiated its restructuring exercise with 468 employees receiving retrenchment notices. TSTT said its revenues had fallen by 453 million or 18% in the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2021. You see, here we go back to the issue where we speak about nearly on a nightly basis. The issue that is the government handling, the government controlling, the government running of publicly owned businesses. The public running of businesses. TSTT is losing money. They have been losing money. And part of the reason would of course be what has been happening in basically every single government run company ever, where they are overstaffed and they are overpaying their overstaffed workers very likely, and very likely they work inefficiently. So now what TSTT has said, the reasoning TSTT has given is the present marketplace, and to be honest, I understand the point they are making. The present marketplace where that TSTT is in, that communications and information technology marketplace, it's speeding forward. The TSTT wouldn't be making as much money because WhatsApp has free calls. Facebook has free calls. There is Zoom. There is Google Meets. Once you have internet, a lot of the regular TSTT services are pointless to you. You could get internet from someone other than TSTT. So you could have access to communication around this country using nothing from TSTT. And understandably, such a thing would affect TSTT's bottom line. They will not be able to make as much money, obviously. TSTT's CEO Lisa Agard said the company had to align to industry benchmarks and evolve with new technologies to return to profitability. Given our challenges, TSTT has no option but to restructure to remain competitive. The restructuring exercise is expected to result in a more efficient, customer-focused, and modernized organization. Now, here's part of the thing. What they are being accused of, though, is this whole restructuring idea, this whole retrenchment idea. What they are doing is actually circumventing the unions. MSJ condemns TSTT retrenchment as union busting. Now, bear in mind, this wouldn't be the first time the government would be accused of that. There has been some accusations that what occurred at Petrotrin was for that very same reason. Now, some of you may be familiar with how I view some unions, and I could understand why they may be trying to get around the unions. That's not necessarily saying it's a good thing, but I can understand why. Unions make it that the employment status quo is very difficult to change. However, whatever is the culture of my workplace, good night Crash 7200, whatever is the culture of my workplace, if all the workers become unionized, it becomes very difficult to change that culture, because the unions now have the power and they have the ear of all the workers, and all the workers can say, well, listen, we like how it is and we are not changing it. So if you are looking to restructure your entire company and you have a union that represents all the employees of your company, I gotta understand why you might be wanting to get rid of those workers to get around the unions. That could make some sense. MSJ condemns TSTT retrenchment as union busting. The Movement for Social Justice has condemned the proposed retrenchment of over 400 TSTT workers. MSJ leader David Abdullah described it as another act of union busting. In a statement on Wednesday, Abdullah expressed solidarity with the TSTT employees and their representative Communication Workers Union. He said the notices of retrenchment via email on May 31st telling workers not to report for duty were grossly disrespectful. He said these workers, the majority of them, have given yeoman service to the company for many decades, were being made scapegoats for bad management decisions over the years. Recalling the board and management optimism after the last retrenchment 4 years ago about the company's readiness to return to great profitability, Abdullah questioned why these entities failed to deliver. Once again, this Rowley PNM government has demonstrated its utter disrespect and disregard for working class citizens and facilitated the displacement of over 400 workers on the breadline. He envisaged more fallout in these challenging economic times. Part of my problem with how some of these unions talk is they speak like they don't have an understanding about the reality and economics. TSTT is a company. If TSTT as a company fails to make enough money, they cannot have enough money then as a company to pay the workers that they employ. It's maths. And okay, you could say you don't believe the TSTT numbers coming out from TSTT. You could say you don't believe the stories that TSTT are giving. Granted, that's what you'd have to see. But if until somehow it is proven that all that TSTT is telling us are all lies and they are being dishonest. All lies and they are being dishonest. Until you can prove that, I don't understand what possible argument you can make for keeping the workers there. And that's my problem with many of these unions, and many of them how they have the very leftist view of economics, where they think somehow like the government has an infinite source of money that they can always pay the workers, and anytime any worker is let go, it's because the government hates these workers and the government is just punishing them. I don't think so. I think if the government was able to, they would want to employ everyone in Trinidad and Tobago for an all-right salary because it would give them more votes. I don't think the government wants to fire these 400 plus workers. And they're saying that it is management decisions that has caused the company to be in the situation it is currently in. Okay. I don't know that to be a fact. I don't deny it necessarily, but I don't know it to be a fact. They're saying the reason they are in the current situation they are in is because the technology itself is changing. The economy that they are in, this present industry that they are in, the nature of it is changing. Can we attest to that? When we look at the ICT industry, the information and communications technology industry, is it changing year in, year out? Yes, it is. How do you make the majority of your calls now? When last have you spent over an hour on a landline? When last have you spent over an hour in a literal phone call? Unless, generally speaking, you're a business person. These days, people don't spend an hour or more in actual phone calls. They call all those calls via internet. You could say, y'all are here literally sitting watching me in my little studio here, talking to you, without having to pay TSTT for it. This right here is how TSTT is losing money. This right here is how TSTT is losing money. So to say that it's just management decisions that has caused TSTT to lose money, I don't know if I believe that. No, I am not saying that I'll put my head on a block that TSTT had good management. I believe that their management would have been less than ideal because it was a government corporation, and that's my assumption for nearly all government corporations, that very likely the management wouldn't be ideal. So I don't deny that. But what is the solution then? What is the solution now? How can we change that? Most of these state-run businesses are not run as businesses, and it has been so for quite some time. Very true. Nisi says they're using their own phones because the government don't pay their bills. And JPair27 over on Instagram pointed out the example I regularly bring up. Metal, same thing was done for ArcelorMittal. They celebrated on the steps of the industrial court. They won that ArcelorMittal case. No, you have to pay us our rightfully deserved wages. And ArcelorMittal closed. That's the reality. The leader of the MSJ went on to say this. It is obvious Rowley has set union busting as a strategic objective. I don't know if I disagree with that. He argued he cited the closure of TIDCO, shutting down of Petrotrin, this second massive retrenchment of TSTT, along with the intentions to restructure the port and WASA to back his claim of government's anti-worker, anti-union strategy. So now, what you would notice is all of these things that he cited here, all of these things, the closure of TIDCO, shutting down of Petrotrin, the TSTT restructuring, WASA, and the port, all of these things, the government is saying that they have to do these things because all of these previous identities were busting. They were costing us money. And it seems like the union strategy, the union's idea is let's just continue as we're going. You have the money, pay us for it. If you don't have the money, it's because you are not managing this business right. Well, maybe that's what they're saying. Part of the bad management involved in many of these companies, in many of these institutes, was that they overhired people. So they are rectifying these bad management decisions by unhiring some of the people they overhired. I am not happy people are losing their job. I am not saying that. But I am saying that we have to understand reality. We have to juxtapose this with reality. This is being done, he argued, this is being done to satisfy the 2% of big foreign and local businesses and the wealthy who control economic power in the country. Weaker unions, or better still, no unions at all, equal more profits for the owners and managers of capital. If you listen to what he's saying, you get the socialism bleeding out of it, just by the way. Now, I don't disagree that some of what they are doing is to benefit big business. But bear in mind when many of these union leaders talk, and they talk about the 2% in the society and those wealthy elites in the society, almost all of those union leaders belong to those wealthy elites. Wasn't it not too long ago that the Prime Minister revealed the salary for a certain union leader was $100,000 or somewhere around that, and that's without some of the perks that they get. These men are already very wealthy men. The unions are a source of a lot of income for these men. So just as they are willing to say that the government and the business leaders are willing to make up what they want to make up so that they can make sure they remain in places of power, why isn't the same true for some of these union leaders? Wouldn't they say what they need to say to remain in places of power where they themselves are capable to shut down the country on a Friday if they say so, or are able to live in their own exclusive communities and drive their own exclusive vehicles? Good night, interesting. Now listen to this statement, the statement from the leader of the MSG. What we are witnessing now is another travesty of justice handed down to ordinary working class citizens. This is another signal for working class citizens to unite and do everything necessary to create a society where those who labor would hold the reins of power and there would be social justice for all. That statement is literally a call for a socialist society. That's what that sounds like to me, especially when you put it on the back of him complaining about the managers of capital in the previous statement, complaining about the managers of capital, and then going on to say all the workers need to unite and do everything necessary to create a society where those who labor would hold the reins of power and we would have social justice for all. That sounds like a line out of the Marxist guidebook. And the reality is that does not work. All those who labor hold all the reins of power and create a society with social justice for all does not work. They've tried it. Many have tried it. Part of the problem is that all those who labor cannot actually lead. All the workers of Trinidad can't all be the joint prime ministers of Trinidad. When those labor leaders talk about the workers and the laborers leading, they're saying that the labor leaders are the ones that are going to lead. All us labor unionists, we are going to lead the country. The laborers are going to lead. But us union leaders are going to speak on behalf of the laborers. So really and truly, when we say that the workers lead, it's really us, the pigs in Animal Farm. We will speak on behalf of all the animals, because all the animals can't be in the house leading. Someone has to actually lead, and we will put ourselves in this very unfortunate position where we would have to lead and take care of everyone. We will put that strain on ourselves, and we will do that as your fellow comrade, as a servant to the country. But the thing is, once we are in a position of leadership, we cannot leave such a position. Not ever. Because us leaders, once we are leading, we have to do what is right for the people, and we have to see it done to the end. So you cannot remove us from those positions of leadership once we get there. If you look at many of the labor leaders, they have some real problems giving up power when it comes time to hand over power. How many labor leaders are leading their unions for decades? And then when you look in the communist and socialist countries and you see their leaders and how they lead for decades too, you see, it adds up. It adds up. That's kind of my problem, why I'm nearly always very worried with those labor leaders. I don't trust them. I don't trust what you want. What your ideal is for my country isn't really what my ideal is for my country. No. Sorry, sir. No. I can't imagine the labor leaders being in charge of this country where they would collect taxes from every private citizen and use all of that to ensure that no worker in any of the government institutions or companies can ever be fired. That's insane. That's insane. If the thing is unsustainable and unprofitable, by all means, you have no choice. You cannot run it like this. You cannot then take money from every one of the other citizens to then pour into this company that isn't making money. You are being paid for a job where your services are not creating profit for the society. That's what it means when you are being retrenched there. The company is saying that your present job cannot create profit for our society. If we leave you in this job, it's like, okay, you can hire someone to do really hard work, but their work gives no profit to society. I could hire someone to dig a hole and fill it back and keep doing that for a year's time. They can dig the hole, fill it back. Each time it's filled again, they dig it back again. And I could pay them $500 a day, and they could say that they're working very hard and they're working for their money. And at the end of the year, with their $500 a day salary, they're collecting good money. And they're right, they are working hard and they are working hard for their money, but the service that they are providing to me and to the general society has no value. So the $500 that I must give them to dig the hole and then fill it back and then dig it again, I must go find that $500 of value from the general society. Someone has to create that $500 of value somewhere else, and then I am going to bring that $500 and carry it to you and give it to you. That's unfair, and that creates problems in our society because we are giving people value without them creating the reciprocal value in our system. And then we are surprised when inflation happens because the value that the actual goods and services carry does not represent the value that the number on our money carries, because we have given people too much of that number on the money. We give that away without getting the reciprocal value. So surprise, surprise, the value now that we must pay with the number and the money goes up much higher than the actual value of the good. Surprise, surprise. Are we all surprised by this? We shouldn't be. That's how we run the country. And sorry, I don't want the union leaders to run us anymore like this. I don't think that's a good idea. All right, folks, that's all I have for now. We had the Mindful Afterlife last night. We won't have any Mindful Afterlife tonight. Most likely tomorrow and Friday we'll have some more Afterlife chat, but that's all I have for now. Be sure to hit that like button, head over to my YouTube channel, Nathan Springer, and subscribe. If you are not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, drop a comment, tell me what you think, and I will see you again for the next Mindful Live tomorrow night at 9:30 p.m. or thereabouts. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained, and I will see you again tomorrow. Au revoir. Peace.